edition of Go-to-Market Friday. This is actually our second one. We've positioned this a little bit differently now, where we're talking about broader topics. And today's topic is a hot topic with a lot of marketers, which is the whole AI and marketing transformation. Can't think of a better returning guest than Christine, who's joining us from PathFactory. She's the SVP of Product Marketing and AI Go-to-Market. Meg and Christine used to work together, so I'm going to pass it to her in a moment. Just as a refresher, we've done, Meg and I, my co-host, have done over 300 of these videos over the last 3.5 years on best practices of go-to-market. If you have a specific question, she or I can certainly address it. You can either drop it in the comments below as you're watching, or you can go to our YouTube channel that has all the recorded videos. We can certainly point you to the best practice areas as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Meg to do a proper introduction to Christine.
All right. Thanks, John, and welcome, everybody. Glad you're here and super excited to welcome Christine. And Christine and I did have the opportunity, and I had the pleasure to work with Christine for a number of years when we were both at Serious Decisions. But I think what makes Christine so exceptional in the B2B space is her years of experience really thinking deeply about the role of content in B2B go-to-market and the role that it needs to play in terms of supporting growth, in terms of supporting customer engagement. And she, actually launched the practice that we had at Serious Decisions around content strategy and operations when people didn't even have those words. So a woman ahead of her time. And now at PathFactory, you're doing some really cool stuff, Christine. And you have been doing cool stuff for many years. So thank you for joining us. We're really happy you're here.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here again. Hi, everyone.
And to kick things off, Christine, maybe tell us a little bit about your role and kind of how you got there, because I think that'll then tell us why you're so qualified to answer the question of what is likely to change the most in marketing with AI over the next 12 months. But let's start with learning a little bit more about you.
Okay, sure. So hi, everybody. Thanks for joining the session today. I'm so happy to be here with you because this is a topic I am very passionate about. So I've been at PathFactory as SVP of Product Marketing and AI Go-to-Market, as John said, for about three and a quarter years now, where I've really been focused on all things PMM and go-to-market related to PathFactory offerings, which are tied to using a combination of content, digital experiences, AI, automation, and data together. That sounds like a lot, but that's really what we need to do to be effective in digital marketing, and to operationalize best practices, as well as productize that, as well as clarify our own messaging and positioning in the market to help people understand why that is so important to address those types of issues. Prior to that, I was, as Megan said, I launched and led the content strategy and operations research practice at Serious Decisions, then acquired by Forrester and ran it there for a few years before coming to PathFactory. But even prior to that, I had been in senior content strategist roles. I had led marketing as a whole, with a very audience-centric, content-led type of vision on how to do demand and how to do integrated marketing, which was very successful for me. And even way earlier in my career, I started in digital publishing. And I used to say I was doing digital marketing and content marketing before people had names for those things. And Megan, I won't go into it now unless you want to dig into it a little bit more, but I was sharing with Megan on a catch-up call recently how even back in 2008, when I was in a senior content strategy role, I was the content strategy lead on our Eloqua implementation back at the time. And I remember the lead consultant coming in from Eloqua, and the first thing he said is he walks into this room of us, this task force, where he says, content is king, and you will not be successful with your marketing automation if you do not treat it that way. And I was like, who is this person? I've met my people. And it's still true today with everything that's happening with AI. So I find that very interesting as well, that certain themes around content and how we need to think about it, which is kind of classic B2B stubbornness, in my opinion, is that we still need to address some of those issues we were even dealing with way back then to use content more effectively.
Well, and perhaps it's even become more urgent, I think.
It is, yes.
And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that, because I agree with you that the more things change, the more they stay the same, but there's also a lot changing. And a lot of new resources and technologies for buyers and for sellers. So based on what you're seeing, and you work with a number of different companies in addition to your experience, and so I think you've got a good vantage point. What do you think AI is changing the most in the near term?
I mean, in the near term, I mean, I think
All the next 12 months.
Yeah, I would say everything's changing, right? I mean, I don't know one aspect of B2B that there is not some lens being applied of how do we reimagine this or create efficiency or create scale or whatever it is around this using AI, right? So I don't think that there's one aspect of B2B marketing that will not go through some sort of evolution or change or already hasn't been. I think one of the things I forgot to mention in my current role is I'm literally helping our customers launch AI agents on a daily basis, as well as enabling our internal teams on how to use AI better as well. So I've been learning a lot from that, and also understanding that how quickly things are moving. To your point, it's never been more urgent to look at the maturity of your content engine and its ability to support what it needs to be, as well as your data, to be effective at adopting and scaling AI within your organization. But what I do say to people is think about it, and I've said this for years, and it's true to AI as well. You have to think how you're going to apply it across the full marketing life cycle, right? So how do I apply it effectively in planning and go-to-market strategy? How do I apply it effectively in production and creation of assets? And how do I apply it in my activation or promotion or distribution, external and internal, right? And then how do I apply it in terms of performance optimization or from an operations perspective? So to me, it's like, how do I think in a holistic way about where I'm going to apply AI? And then from a transformation perspective, because again, I always say content engine transformation is the backbone of digital transformation success. So if you don't address it, you will not be successful at transforming yourselves digitally, which I know everybody is feeling even more of an urgency right now, because it's being even further exposed if you waited, right, for all the other things we should have been doing all these years. What I would say is, like I said in our content engine transformation roadmap that I built at Sirius and Forrester's, you need to look at transformation through the lenses of strategy, right? What is my strategy? What are my goals? All of that. What are the people impacts? So how does this affect org design? How does this affect skill development? How does this affect resourcing and headcount budgets? Then I look at it from a process perspective. How does this change the way workflows are designed? How do I look at it from a promotion perspective? How does this affect the experience types I offer, the channels that I operate in, all of that? And then from the ops or performance optimization perspective, what does ops look like in an AI world, right? Like, so the things that I've always talked about, content audit and inventory, metadata and taxonomy, thinking through the integrations you need across a life cycle, all become that. What are the data elements that you need to be able to measure? All of that becomes suddenly much more urgent based on where we are today. And I'll stop there because that was a lot. Sorry, that was a little long-winded, but yeah, that's where my thoughts are on that.
Yeah, love that framework, Christine. And certainly you've had a lot of experiences. And it sounds like we were talking in the pre-show about coming off a road show and talking with a lot of clients in terms of what they're doing with content and their maturity. And, you know, thinking also about how you were talking about applying content to different parts of the life cycle. If you were to give like a parallel analogy to data in terms of fueling your growth, how would you see content fueling growth in this next, you know, like 2026? How should people be thinking about content fueling the 2026 growth?
I mean, content is constantly fueling our growth, or it should be even today, right? It is the primary thing that drives journeys in a digital landscape, right? So in terms of driving growth, I think we have to continue to look at how do we unlock the potential of what our content is and can do for us, right? So one, for example, again, when I'm thinking from a content strategy perspective, are you creating reusable GPTs, for example, that are common and accessible across your entire team that can be reused to generate scale and speed and, frankly, better inputs at that point, right, with the types of prompts you use? in the production? Have I already implemented using AI for ideation and for drafting and all of that kind of thing, right? For activation, which is a very strong point for PathFactory, like how am I using it to drive personalization at scale? How am I using it to personalize at every touch point in a way that isn't just a personalization layer, like I know who you are, but it's very contextual to who that person is, where they are in a journey and what they care about. And you need, and that comes back to your question around data or your comment around data. You cannot do that without what I call content intelligence, right? Which is not only an understanding of what your content is, how it's working for you, how the data around the interaction that's happened with it by whom, but how does that go back and inform your larger go-to-market strategy, which that loop does not exist for most people that I know today, right? So, and that comes back to that comment as content as data. Content is data. It is actually a container of information, right, in itself that can be analyzed to understand what it's about. But as people interact with that content, whether it's a conversation response or an actual PDF or a web page, that is generating signals that we need to be able to capture and tie back to the account, opportunity, individual level, as well as to the campaign level. There's all of these different lenses that if we don't think of content as data and also include it in our data strategy, a unified data strategy, we will inevitably have gaps in our insights around the customer lifecycle. Bottom line. I'm passionate about it.
Well, and I think, really all of this going back to our better understanding of the customer, I think is a really, really critical point. And are you seeing companies kind of take this as a moment to do that? One of the things we wanted to talk about today was roadblocks.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share, the roadblocks that you're seeing. But I think it seems to me one of the big ones is this sort of bizarre unwillingness to understand what's going on with your customers that I just don't get.
I don't know if it's an unwillingness. I think it's like a lack of readiness issue, right? That has a lot of variables that contribute to readiness issues, right? There's this fragmentation, there's the within B2B ecosystems, classic cultural challenges, resistance to change. I mean, there's so many variables at play. I mean, the roadblocks that I'm hearing about on these AI roadshows that we've been doing, and as well as just during implementation of agents with customers, is one, there is suddenly the recognition like, oh crap, our data is definitely not where it's going to need to be to train AI the way we want to. Garbage in, garbage out still applies, right? At the AI, even more so at the AI level. So I'm seeing a lot of rapid standing up of unified data strategy or some sort of data initiatives, right, that are taking place to get a handle on that. The other roadblock I think people perceive they have, at least when I've been talking to them, is either that they have too much content and it's too overwhelming, or we don't have enough content to train an agent or use AI the way we want to, or except for like to create more content, right? You know what I mean? So I think that both of those things are untrue. The roadblocks, I think, for a lot of folks are really that mentality, right? Of like, I'm not ready for AI. I'm going to have to do all of these other things first. At the organizational level, I think that especially the more enterprise you go, the more I see there is more of a top-down approach happening, right? To deal with roadblocks where they're like, we're going to build a new org chart and we're going to have AI assistants in the org chart. And then we're going to build new workflow design. And then we're going to train everybody and roll out governance docs. And I think there's a lot of value to that, but that also is slower, right? Top down is slower. In the meantime, you've got your bottoms up people going rogue anyway, and they're just using those tools however they want because they're trying to find efficiencies in their jobs. On the more SMB side or like smaller team size, I think that the roadblocks are resources, as well as just feeling like they may not have the internal cultural or leadership support that they need. So, I mean, we could have a conversation literally on that alone. So I'll stop there. But I think the roadmaps are essentially related to content hygiene, or even just knowing what you have, right? Your data in general, which comes back to your comment, Megan, about like, I don't understand my customers very well. That's because you don't have the data, right? Because your data would tell you. And then also just the change management aspect, which is probably the number one thing that people bring up is, you know, we have people who are very excited, and then we have people who are like, AI is coming for my job, and they're resisting at all costs, which means they're actually not going to have a job because that train left the station.
Yeah, great point about the data side. It's so important to have first-party data quality, and having somebody, we call it a data czar, somebody who's in charge of the data overall, or not necessarily somebody who's responsible for other people getting their jobs done on data, kind of a butt kicker, as opposed to the one person that has all of the data responsibilities, because it's so large and it touches so many parts of the organization. But without it, like you said, AI adoption just stalls out, or garbage in, garbage out. You layer on top of AI bad data, you're just going to get a bad result quicker. So it's really great to hear that you're seeing that as well. Based on your experiences and hearing, especially on the road show, are there any companies that are doing it well? And if so, like what what are they doing well as part of that adoption process?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to name any names without permission, but in general, yes, I am seeing certain people do it well. I mean, definitely at the enterprise level, we're seeing some of our larger enterprise customers, what they're doing looks just incredible, right? But they also have the resources to do it. But again, I'm seeing a lot of standing up of AI councils and AI boards at the enterprise level. So I think that's also just something to be aware of as we all introduce AI offerings into our own products, is that you likely are going to be going through an AI board or an AI council at some point. I think that is a best practice and something that I'm seeing commonly done. The unified data strategy initiatives seem very common at this point as well. The ones that are working well with us in terms of the performance of AI agents also have very good rigor around content operations, bringing it back to my favorite topic, which is they are good about tagging and taxonomy and schema markup on web pages that are going to make them more friendly for AI search, ask search results, so to speak. So again, it's getting back to that idea of, if you've got a unified data strategy and that doesn't include a content operations element so that you're applying those aspects to your content as well, then you probably have a gap in your data strategy.
Yeah, you're reminding me a lot of some of the I would call it kind of general best practices that would help a number of different parts of the operation. I mean, I'm thinking right now of, some of the work that I do around account base. Having that council or that center of excellence makes all the difference if you can do it. And I know you can't always do it, but to your point, having a group that is kind of responsible for oversight and consistency is really good. But it's interesting. We had a guest a few weeks ago, David Quaid, who was talking about GEO and versus SEO and some of the myths out there. Sounds like you two are very much in agreement that just some of the basic things that one needs to do in general for your content to be meaningful and discoverable outside of your organization's walls is the same stuff that you need to do to be ready for AI. Would you say that's fair?
It's very fair. And that's what I think is so interesting, and why I brought up that 2008 map comment, right? Because while we're in a different era of tech, it's so interesting to me that the best practices honestly have not changed. Like the fundamentals remain the fundamentals, right? Like you need to have a content inventory. You need to understand what you do and don't have to support different journey and go-to-market scenarios. You need to use data to validate those assumptions, like real first-party engagement data to validate those assumptions. You need to be able to connect and understand the touch points that happen across journeys. None of that's changed. The metadata, and how many times have I used the words metadata and taxonomy over the last decade, right? Like that has not changed. And again, it's just when these new like inflection points happen in tech, all it does is further expose that the fundamentals were never addressed, right? So it's just, we're here again, but now the stakes, and I don't mean to sound dramatic saying that, but the stakes are higher than ever, because this is not like map. AI is not like map. it's going to be much faster. The trajectory is going to be much more of a hockey stick. We have to move much faster as marketers to stay relevant as marketers than ever before. And the content piece is going to be critical to that. And the content as data is going to be critical to that. So I see with our customers, the ones who are more mature in their content ops are moving much more quickly in terms of their ability to scale, adopt, and scale AI.
I think you hit the nail right on the head with the stakes have never been higher, even though it might sound a little trite. A great example this week was Monday.com, who missed their earnings and they blamed it on a Google algorithm change and lost a third of their market value. So literally billions of dollars because of a Google algorithm change.
I didn't see.
And so that's in 3D. That supports exactly what you just said about why this content is so important. And the fundamentals really, like you said, haven't changed. So yeah, I think you bring up a great point on that. How about skills wise? Like, where do you see the skills of a marketing team? And it's tough because we're in the 2026 planning season now. What should people be planning for, going into the season, knowing that they need content, the fundamentals haven't changed, there's AI, do more with less. Like, how do you reconcile all that?
It's tough. I mean, again, I would be making sure that across the full content lifecycle, I'm looking for where I can use AI to drive efficiencies and scale for myself and repeatability of tasks, right? So I'm setting up GPTs, for example, that I can use repetitively to do my job well. At the sort of more executive level, I mean, what I'm seeing is really like entire budgets being revisited, right? Like how much is going towards AI tools versus headcount, the AI governance boards, that sort of thing. The biggest thing, I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again, is just you have got to start building your own AI muscles. That is the most important thing as a marketer, is you're using it every day. You're open to experimentation. You're comfortable with all of the typical tools that are out there and getting a lot of buzz. You've used Perplexity, you know what I mean? Like you're in there doing stuff. Because honestly, that's where, and I've heard, my CEO says this, and I've heard other CEOs say this as well. We're not hire, it's part of the standard interview process now. How do you use AI? What are your AI skills? So you've got to get comfortable and really tone up those muscles, which that only happens for any of us. None of us are fit in any way in any part of our lives without practice and consistency, right? So that is really what my advice would be, is just start using some of these tools. I pay for some of these subscriptions myself, out of my own personal dollar, because it's important to me that I'm building my skills. And also make sure you understand the AI in your own products and offerings, and you're articulate and well-versed in that as well. Because I don't see that necessarily true all the time in marketing, that marketing understands its own products well enough.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think the foundation of good content is knowledge, and you can outsource some of that to AI, but not all of it. Yeah. So having that firsthand knowledge of customers and your own products and your markets, I think becomes a good also kind of checkpoint on AI to say, is what I'm seeing back from what I'm asking and what I'm getting it to do for me actually what I need? And is it going to be effective? What are some of the ways that you would encourage people who are, say, call it in the early to mid stages of deploying AI, to look for in terms of outcomes that they might be seeing? What are some positive impacts that they might be able to see in their content work?
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to depend on the use case, right? So you need to start first with, what am I trying to accomplish by using AI, right? For what ends? So for example, the AI agents that we build for our customers are trained on specific collections of content that they can curate. So it's all branded, governed, right? And then those agents essentially provide a conversational window into talking with that content. So making sure that we're providing better self-service journeys is kind of my goal in life with what we're doing with our AI, and less about it's funny because we have like all these, we have lots of form capabilities, intelligent form strategies, right? You can soft gate, you can hard gate, you can time, you can do this. I really don't want to put gates on anything at this point. So it's funny to me, we offer it because we know we still have marketers who are going to say, I absolutely need to put a form on something. But really, as we move towards leveraging our content for providing better AI first experiences, I like that we now have this ability to turn content into conversations, right? And that's really, and I love also being able to look at that conversation and that prompt query data and see where there was a low confidence score on the AI's ability to answer, because that immediately tells me where I have a gap in my content strategy to support self-service interactions. It also, I look at our unanswered queries and I say, sometimes there's junk in there, but then you're like, bam, those 4, we have a content gap there. We have no content that answers these things. Our AI told us that, also told the end user that, right? So I can use other types of AI tools to quickly spin up something that fills that hole, obviously get someone to touch it. We do not want to, I will not put anything 100% AI out without a human in the loop. But again, you're starting to build those workflows, right? Where it's like, I'm using data to plan. I'm planning using AI. I'm producing with AI assistance. I'm promoting using AI-based automation for personalized experiences and scale. And then I'm going back and looking at that data again, and it's creating this 360-degree loop for me, where hopefully my insights, to your point, Megan, because it really does always come back to, how well do I understand my customer? How well am I serving my customer? Do I even know what my customer cares about? And can I give it to them, right? So, and what I also love about that too is that now we're also going to be able to automate the routing of those insights to different teams, right? Like, so I want my PMM team, for example, to know everything that was asked about our competitors in our conversation agent. I want our head of content to know every single unanswered query or low confidence score query that they had. So at least that's maybe not the singular thing they use to prioritize, as you said, because they're lean and there's only so much we can do, what they do next in terms of content creation investment, but it's absolutely an input, right? Into saying, oh, I had these 3 things I was focused on. I'm looking at this AI agent and what it's telling me in terms of first-party interactions. I'm account matching as well, using third-party intent data where possible. I'm tying this back to what's happening in our pipeline. And now I actually can make very intelligent decisions about what content is going to help revenue, right? I'm using data to do that. I'm not saying, my CEO said we need more videos, or like whatever that is, or, oh no, AI search. Now I'm going to start doing weird stuff that, if we come back to fundamentals, that has been best practices in content marketing for a long, long time. Know who your audience is, know what the core topics are that they care about, build topical authority in those topic pillars, and keep creating content so you build your digital authority and your digital footprint in those areas, and then activate that as many places as you can so people can find you. That doesn't change with AI search. All it means now is make sure your metadata, start improving your metadata, include schema markups, things that are going to help you show up in snippets, things that are going to help you show up. Then tools aren't there yet. Like the SEO tools, in my opinion, aren't there. There's like a couple that offer opportunities to kind of see what's happening, but it's moving so fast, the whole AI search piece. But you can go in and have a checklist, and once a month go and say, I'm going to go look in all of these search engines, and I'm going to take our top 20 keywords and I'm going to put in some queries and see what happens. Do I even show up? Right? I can start looking at referral sources. Am I getting referrals from things like Perplexity AI or things like that? So I think there is actually some manual work we need to do to stay on top of that while the SEO tool market catches up in terms of what it's able to show to us. But coming back to the fundamentals, we always should have been understanding who our audience segments are and creating content around topic pillars for them. It doesn't change. There's just some added layers of to-dos we have to put on top of that to support the AI piece.
Yeah, I hope our listeners take everything you just said, especially in the last 30 seconds, to heart. I couldn't agree more on how you're framing things up. And my last question, since we're kind of nearing time here, And building off of what you just said about sharing the signals on a specific account, maybe this gets a little producty, but I'll ask the question anyway. Are you seeing, or do you have the ability to look across the entire customer journey across all of your content? In other words, do you have AI layered in PathFactory such that I could look at all of my customers and say, okay, yes, they each have their individual path, which you have AI that can do that analysis, but can it do it in the aggregate as well? And if so, like, how are you deploying that?
So in our, so yes, we have revenue-based metrics for all our AI capabilities, kind of based into holistic dashboards across all experience types, including agents, all of that. But then also we are looking, so in one of the things that I say about PathFactory and what I think we as marketers, whether you're doing it with what I use or anyone else, is we need these layers of and altitudes of data and insights. So I need to understand how my content is performing through a variety of attributes in marketing, depending on who I am. If I'm a CMO versus a head of content versus a field marketer, whatever, right? I have my lenses through which I need to look. I'm responsible for a specific channel, whatever the case may be. I also need to look at it at the total pipeline level. I need to look at it at the account, the segment or account level, like cohorts of accounts or individual accounts. I need to look at content journeys at the opportunity level and then at the individual level. And the layer that I'm looking at depends on what I am doing in the customer lifecycle or in my role in the go-to-market function, right? So that's why I keep coming back to the data piece, because those levels of insights are what are going to give you the opportunity to really understand how content is impacting revenue and make smarter decisions around that. Whereas today, I don't think people understand how content impacts revenue if they don't have a tool like PathFactory. Sorry for the plug. But if you don't have that opportunity to say, this content impacted X amount of dollars for us, we all are struggling as marketers with defending and validating our existence in the world a lot of the times, it feels like, right? One of the challenges we have around that is because we have such a massive investment that goes towards creating content, promoting content, and then we can't show anybody how all of that ties back to actual real results for our business. So you have to treat content as data. You have to collect that data, and you have to understand how that ties back to everything we just said: pipeline, accounts, ops, individuals, etc.
Yeah, right on to all that. And if you can do that, I think it builds, to use your term, it builds your muscles in some really, really critical areas of how to communicate the value of marketing, not just how to execute marketing effectively. So all really, really good things. Christine, cannot thank you enough for joining us today and for sharing your knowledge. I continue to be impressed with what you're doing and what you know, and how you help people. And for folks who haven't worked with Christine, you're missing out.
And thank you, John. I appreciate being here. I can't believe 33 minutes already just went by. It feels like it's been 10 minutes.
I know, right? Well, when you have an interesting guest, it goes by fast. Anyway.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. And John, we're taking a break the next couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, we're going to resume back in September, off for a couple Labor Day holiday and extended holidays with other commitments. But yeah, we'll pick back up early September on LinkedIn. In fact, PayPal today just announced a CEO of content for their a position that primarily brands their CEO on LinkedIn. So we're going to kind of take this concept of content that we talked about today, and now we're going to bring it to LinkedIn early September with some new research. And Justin Naraf, who will be sharing us some of his recent research on how to use LinkedIn effectively. And that'll be, I think it's September 5th. I don't remember the exact date. It's first week of September when we're back after Labor Day. So yeah, we'll look forward to having that conversation then.
I will tune in for that. That sounds very interesting.
Well, thank you again. And thank you everybody for joining us. And as always, see you soon and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Christine.